Hello, welcome to the Friends of Zeus podcast. This is episode 97. 97. Tonight we have a very esteemed guest. He's been on before. It's Mr. John Paul McIsaac. I've been saying it wrong 1,000 times over, but I think that's how you say it, correct?
Oh, Mac Isaac.
Mac Isaac. Okay, so I was saying it right.
Yeah, no, you got it.
It's just the pause. I think there's like a subtle pause.
Yeah, it's not McIsaac, it's Mac Isaac.
Mac Isaac.
Yeah. Well, he recently, well, not recently, but he finished a book a little while back. I think I listened to it. It was a great read. It reads like a script for a movie, if I may be honest. I really think it should be a script. I'd go see the movie. It was really good. But tonight is Mike's show, so I'm going to let you take the reins.
Yeah.
And let's get going.
Yeah,
you can see us on all podcast formats and all that.
So let's see. I mean, there's a lot of, we had you on, John Paul, for episode 58. We were just reminiscing before we started back in late March or April. And like I was saying before we started recording, this story and all this stuff that started in John Paul's shop with Hunter Biden stopping by has just kind of spiderwebbed out. There's parts and threads of this story that just go through all these other stories, and really is kind of, in my opinion, at the epicenter of what is going on in this country politically, culturally. It's really a seminal, it's really become a seminal event. And, one of the things, I didn't have it as a formal question, and you can touch on it later, John Paul, but, I was just thinking about trying to put myself in your shoes. And, you just from happenstance, you were dealt this hand, and you kind of played it with integrity and by principle, but you're a historical figure. You really, and I know I'm not saying, look, it's like when people say, American exceptionalism, and people misunderstand that, and they say, oh, the people that believe that think that Americans are greater than everyone. And it's really not that. It's just the ideas that that this country is founded on are greater than other countries were founded on. And it's hard to wear that mantle, but you are. And I really thought about it. I'm like, you're going to be in history books. I mean, this is a huge, and it's going to continue to, it's like an onion, this thing, the way it keeps unwrapping. But anyway, that's just my own opinion. I think what we're going to do tonight is just, again, keep it casual. John Paul, from what I understand, is involved or will be involved or has other different legal things going on. So we are not professional lawyers here at the Friends of Zeus podcast, but that doesn't stop us from trying to act like them
actually,
sometimes.
Technically, Jack is a
professional.
But
he's not here. Yeah, Jack is, but we figured the one guy that would be the most qualified to ask questions, we'd not have him on the podcast tonight. But anyway, John Paul, if at any time, I just want to say this for the audience, we already talked about it, but if there's anything that you don't want to get into, it's totally cool. We'll just be like, hey, I don't want to get into that, because we don't know.
We can edit it out later.
And we can always edit something. If you do,
we most absolutely will.
If you let something slip, like how much you like the Steelers or something like that, we can definitely edit that out.
What is that, hockey?
No, football.
Yeah, see, he doesn't like them.
I know, which is good. No, that's one of the things I love about John Paul, is he doesn't like the Steelers. But anyway.
Guy doesn't like the Ravens either. It's okay.
I know, but if I don't ask, then I'll never know, and I can just live in ignorant bliss. So one of the questions I had, and you kind of started touching on it before we started the podcast, and this is in no particular order. When we had you on last spring, we talked about really all the events that led up, that are covered much better in your book. So if you want to find out about this story, John Paul's book, American Injustice, it's a very quick read. I mean, I think I read it in 3 sittings, because it's one of those you just don't want to put down. I think I read it over 3 nights.
It was really
it has
good.
A nice flow to it, and it's very engrossing. And there's things that you already know, and then there's things that you don't know, which is, it's just an interesting read. But My
Thanks.
point is, you have been in, you know, I can't go 3 days without seeing your name mentioned in a story, or the story mentioned in another story, or on TV or whatever. Have you made a conscious effort to remain in the spotlight, or are people like us just calling you all the time saying, "Hey, can you come on my show?"
Well, I mean, I don't willingly enjoy doing any of this. I mean, I appreciate you being having me on the show again, and I actually have a good time in certain situations, but the process and going through, I'm still not very comfortable doing it, which is good because that tells me I'm not getting acclimated to this, or I'm not getting used to this kind of life. I do want to keep the conversation going until there's justice or accountability. And I wrote the book because I was being shadow banned on YouTube. My ability to tell my side of the story and to try to start to hold these people accountable, I was denied in a court of law. I was denied on social and mainstream media. A narrative was put in its place that I'm a Russian, whatever. So it's kind of, I figured, you know, all they can do is burn books, and I'll just make more books. So writing the book was necessary for me. It was just another piece of that mission to get this story out. And then now I have to get that book out and get people aware of it, so that hopefully next time a presidential election happens, that we'll be a little bit more cautious of our alphabet agencies colluding with our mainstream and social media, or maybe we'll look a little bit different when somebody posts something and it's been fact checked, and then we'll discover that their fact checkers are wrong. It's just having that in somebody's hands is part of that effort. Holding these people accountable in a court of law is another part of that effort. And it's necessary for me to be public to produce or to push both those things, because this is what I do for work now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll jump over to Tom, and then we'll just keep going around. And also, John Paul, and I'll keep things moving. I'll keep an eye on time if someone starts going off the rails. But anytime while we're talking, if you think of something you want to interject, you know, this isn't an interrogation. It's just a conversation. So
You guys are great.
yeah, you're up, Tom.
All right, John Paul. Well, thank you for joining us again. And
Thank you.
the book was great. I used the audio book, I think like Zeus did. It was only like 4.5, 5 hours, and went through it really fast. Maybe we'll talk about the process of writing the book in a bit, but it was very well put together.
Thanks.
And you know, reading that book and hearing your story from the last time you were on the show as well, I mean, it's a fascinating story, and not just all the details surrounding the laptop and everything that happened with that, but to me, what stood out was all the emotions. There seemed to be a lot of emotions that you went through, a lot of ups and downs, a very emotional ordeal that it took you through this whole deal. So my question is, you know, do you feel now that has the pressure kind of subsided a bit at this point at all, or do you still feel, you know, a lot of pressure and stress from what happened?
I totally see the roller coaster. No, the roller coaster is still in full gear. I'm now dealing with Hunter Biden's legal team doing extensive opposition research on myself as well as Tony Bobulinski. So I now get to look forward of somebody possibly rifling through my trash. Since Elon Musk came out with all the Twitter files, now a lot of the country that just thought I was just some October surprise mythical beast of Russian disinformation is now realizing that it was real, and their trusted Twitter helped with their party to conceal that fact. And now they're angry. So I've been getting a slew of people reminding me of what they do to traitors. And so it's like the hate is pouring in. The difference is I've had 2 years to just turn my already thick skin into titanium. So it's kind of, I have fun with these people, because I'm like, you know, you're too late to the party, or, oh, that Russian thing is so 2020, you need to get new material. So I'm having more fun with it as far as, you know, less fear and more kind of just sick, twisted fun. But and I see it as I use Twitter now to only respond to people that are mean with copies of my Amazon link to my book. And that really throws them off, because they're like, why is he not in jail? Why is he not in prison? And I'm like, not only that, walking free, still alive. That's the other thing that they're amazed that I haven't. I actually had a friend that took a copy of my book to her family's beach house in Bethany Beach.
Yeah.
And I guess one of her cousins was a DNC lawyer, and she handed him the book, and he said, I thought that guy died in Colorado like 2 years ago. So
Wow.
it's kind of interesting, but yeah, it's definitely, I was very excited on a couple of Fridays ago when Elon started releasing this information. I felt vindicated. I'm going on the news saying this is the first victory that I've seen, or Elon's brought me the closest to justice that I've seen in all these years. And then next thing you know, Washington Post comes out with an article saying that Hunter's team's going to move mountains to dig up dirt on me to try to destroy my credibility or gag me to prevent me from talking to Congress. And who knows? But it's like, oh, well, great. Now I got to deal with that. So I don't think the roller coaster's over anytime soon.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
I'm dealing with it a lot better. I think I definitely have put myself in a mindset where there's very little fear or anxiety anymore. It's kind of like, this is what I've been waiting for. I've been holding the line for how many years? 2 years, to try to keep the truth alive, keep the story alive, keep pressure on people to investigate this. And now we have a Congress that seems hell-bent on holding the Bidens accountable. We have another part of the House with Jim Jordan, that's gonna hold the FBI accountable, which is everything I want. So, I'm excited, and I'm just it's been holding I've gotten used to holding the line. So now it's, I've just gotten used to it, I guess.
And interesting, not just to jump in, just an interesting point to highlight. And if I'm wrong, from what I understood you saying, let me know. But basically, you have people, or there are people in the world, in the country, that are just learning about this now, right? So, I mean, that's amazing. I didn't even think of it that way. So you're saying you have people that are contacting you who are just learning about all this, and to them, so it's like all over again. It's like 2020 all over again. As far as Eric, as far as you dealing with them, that's amazing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'd say it's a lot less,
Yeah.
because I don't have a store phone number and a publicly advertised 800 number,
Yeah.
and a public website and an email address, which was a great avenue for all this hate to pour into, until I pulled the plug on my business on November 2nd, 2020. And then then it was just people yelling at me on Facebook, or yelling me, pretty much Facebook. That was it. And then I knew when I went onto Twitter, it'd be a minefield, but that's why I went. It's to sell a book, and drink liberal tears.
Yeah. All right, Desiree, do you have any questions or?
No,
far?
I'm just listening.
No, that's cool. How about Zeus?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So, John Paul,
Mhm.
is your Facebook page the one with you doing a Han Solo thing? Because I wanted to add, but I wasn't sure if that was you. Because I'm sure there's a few fake ones.
All right, so there might be oh no, I'm trying to figure out. Okay, it might have been pulled from Facebook. So I might have been a little bit creative in my Tinder profile many years ago. So we'll just leave it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's a couple. There's a Han Solo. There's a Harrison Ford in the Snake Pit. I did a lot of Harrison Fords, actually, come to think of it.
That's the one I've got. Okay, add me.
That's cool.
All
Is
right.
that the Tinder profile that you follow on Tinder?
No, I don't do Tinder right now. I just,
No, I'm asking.
that's asking, that's just asking for a Me Too moment. And I'm not looking for any flack, not in this part of the country. Oh man. A friend of mine convinced me to go out the other night. Actually, in the book, it's Greg, my very large human shield. And he convinced me to go out to a club I used to go to quite often. It's one of the few places you can dance in Wilmington, and I hadn't been in there since all this erupted. And I was there, and I had to leave abruptly because there was a group of people that I could hear, and they were talking about going to start spreading the rumor that I had a gun.
Oh
So
my
Oh
God.
my gosh.
I would be, well, they said maybe they'll throw him off the balcony because I was out on the top balcony, but it was right 2 weeks after the Colorado Springs
Yeah.
shooting, and it was just really bad form. And
Wow.
if I'm making people that uncomfortable, then I don't need to be there. So that's
Wow.
kind of, yeah, I've
Yeah, I
learned a
would
lesson.
argue.
It's no longer safe to leave my home. I'm not going to risk it.
It's like a Twilight Zone episode, John Paul. I mean,
I
it's
would
like,
argue that if you're making people that uncomfortable, then you're doing exactly what is needed right now.
yeah, but those people don't understand.
No,
I
no,
think those
but
people are just ignorant.
no, and that's fine, but people need to be uncomfortable with the information he's provided us with.
Mhm.
That at least shows that it's getting out there, that people are worried that their whole way of life might change, which hopefully it will. I mean, since talking to you, John Paul, I've definitely changed a lot of my political views just based on the, for lack of a better term, barbaric way that they've just tried to push you around and you stuck to it. I mean, more power to you, man. I want to see you thrive. My biggest worry is your safety, and clearly it's a worry for you.
Yeah, I think the Washington Post it was really bad journalism what they did, because the way they framed that article, and I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to read it, but it points out that the only two people that Hunter's legal team are interested in doing opposition research on are myself and Tony.
Tony. Yeah.
And that could be a call to arms. That could be, these are going to be the witnesses. We are going to dig as much dirt. They just outed me and Tony to the Washington Post readers. And somebody that's a nut job might say, hey, I want to make the Biden's life a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah. I mean, I did read that. And I think, I don't know if that was the one I sent to you guys. I'm not sure if that was the one, but just for everyone out in podcast land and everyone on the show, basically the gist of this article, or at least one big part that I took away, Hunter Biden has hired or entered into an agreement with a lawyer named Kevin Morris, who's basically like a Hollywood lawyer, West Coast lawyer, friends of Hunter. I think they had, they've been friends for a while. And his strategy, according to the article, is to go on the offensive from like a PR standpoint, and to do this oppo research on John Paul and Tony Bobulinski and, members of Congress that may want to ask some questions to Hunter Biden and things like that. And apparently, again, this is according to the Washington Post, there's a back and forth between the White House and Hunter's lawyer. The White House, a lot of people are thinking, we just want him to lay low. We don't want him to be in the public. And this guy is definitely more like having like knives out, which is just, when I read it, I was just like so beside myself. I'm like, are you serious? Like, after all this, these people lack like any shame at all to be like, now we're going to go on the offensive. I mean, it blows your mind. It really does. But it was a great article. I mean, we can put a link to it great as far as informative, but we can put it in the a link after the show. For one, and this kind of gets into what you were getting to earlier, John Paul, but for you, looking back now, it's been a number of years, 2+ years. What is, and I was going to say the one takeaway, but you can have 2 or 3 or 4, whatever. But what's the top takeaway from your perspective that people, meaning your fellow citizens, everyone out in podcast land, in the world, in the United States, what's the thing that we, the people, need to take away from this, from your story? Like, what's the fulcrum? Like, what is this? What is it?
Well, I think that on October 14th, when I realized that there had to be some level of collusion, the internet just doesn't shut down a topic of conversation across the board like what we all witnessed on October 14th in 2020. I think when that happened, it dawned on me that this was a hell of a lot bigger than just me and my quest for self-preservation, my quest to get criminal activity to the authorities, and ultimately still at that time, like my quest to, well, at that time it was said and done, but to try to get the laptop as evidence in the impeachment trial.
Mhm.
All those things up until that point, I thought, well, you know, the circle of my involvement is, you know, I'm trying to help out the White House so they have this laptop as evidence, or I'm trying to get this criminality to the FBI, and I hope that the FBI is going to be honest. None of that really mattered anymore on October 14th. Now it's like, holy cow, we have state-run media, we have state-run social media, we have a level of collusion that you would expect to find in a communist country.
Mhm.
And it's done on platforms that are supposed that pride themselves on balance and fair and free, and they demonstrated the complete opposite of that by depriving the American people of the opportunity to know the truth.
Yeah,
So
I mean, and
that
it's
was
not,
the big takeaway, was the collusion.
and the thing that just grinds my gears, Zeus, is that is that it's not, it was totally a bully tactic. I mean, it's not a matter of opinion. I mean, they pushed, and I say they, I mean, whoever, through the media, through the culture, pushed this narrative, and it drug Biden over the finish line. There was this poll, I mean, there's been a few polls, but there's this one, this is just in the last few days came out, a poll by, who was it? It was Tip Insights. 1,351 Americans. This was from December 7th through the 9th of this year. 71% polled agreed that accurate reporting of what they call the laptop from hell, which is another question I have for you, if you like that term or not, could have affected the outcome of the presidential election in 2020. So
Absolutely.
71% of us, you know, statistically, 4.5% margin of error, believe that the suppression of the story directly affected the outcome of the election. That is earth shattering, right? I mean, for all that we hear about election deniers and all this stuff, like the truth being pushed, and the danger is it doesn't matter what's right and what's wrong. They did it. They did it. And they're still doing it. And they've been doing it. I mean, for all, it makes you, with these Twitter files coming out, like I said, this thing has legs. This thing has little webs that go off into all millions of different directions. And my hope, just a little opinioning here, is that there's some consequences for this. That's and I feel that that's what you're saying too, John Paul, is there needs to be some reckoning, some accountability, and that's kind of what your mission is, because if not, then it's going to
Why
happen
now?
again. I mean, if there's not, I mean, that's just human nature. If there's no punishment for this, but
I
anyway,
I agree. That is the main core of why I continue to fight, is that if we don't hold these people accountable, not only do they get away with whatever crime or, you know, activity that they weren't supposed to do that they're doing, but it sends a signal that I can do this in the future, or the next guy is going to be able to get away with it, because then it becomes a status quo.
mhm.
The job in our government should not come with a profit. We should take the profit motive out of it. We need to make it a job that you don't, unless your heart is pure and your heart's in the right place, you're not going to want to do this job. And if there's accountability, if you're no longer able to have your princeling family members rake in the cash while you provide access and grant, and like Joe's case, you know, MBNA, the bank in downtown, was his biggest contributor. And of course, Hunter got on the board of directors for that. So it's kind of, this give and take has to end, because that's no longer a government of the people for the people. It's a government comprised of a ruling class that's quite happy to take lobbyist money and make their decisions that way. And that's not what it's supposed to be. It's so I think that this is if I blow the whistle and I survive this, and I can show that I have the support of half the country, at least, that will have my back, then maybe the next guy will blow a whistle as well, because I set an example instead of being an example. So I'm hoping that I can bring that. I'm hoping that I can start something where you can't be bullied, you can't be pushed down. There's going to be enough people that will, yeah, there's not a lot of money, but there's a lot of heart behind what we're doing, and we want to win. But winning isn't me actually winning. Me winning is them losing.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
And one thing that you have, John Paul, and and a lot of people, not enough people have it, but our politicians certainly don't have it, is virtue. And for all the people that complain about the government, and I do it probably every day. None of it matters if the people involved, and I mean the elected officials, the people voting for them, the representatives, the electorate, everyone. You have to have virtue. You have to want things to be, done in a certain way, and to be moral and not underhanded. And I fear, and it's being proven, is that there's an element in our country, there's a certain segment of elected officials that completely lack virtue. It's a zero-sum game. It is a power struggle. It's a brass knuckle fight, and virtue doesn't have anything to do with what they use to make their decisions. I mean, that's abundantly clear. I mean, based on just on the Twitter file stuff. But anyway, Tom, you're up.
Well, along those lines, so with Twitter, I mean, when Elon Musk came in and purchased Twitter and started revealing a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that was going on there, and I can tell you seem to be very pleased with how things are unfolding there. But when I think about it, and Mike was alluding to the role you'll play in history, I think your laptop story played a critical role, because I don't know if we would be at this point without this laptop story, because the suppression of the laptop story was one of the things that kind of compelled Elon to come forward, because he wants to restore free speech on that platform, which wasn't there before. So I don't know if we'd be at this point without your story. I don't know if you realize, but I think you played a very critical role in getting us and getting Elon to feel that he had to jump in and do something. So obviously you're probably happy with what's going on at Twitter, but what do you think needs to happen with the other big tech platforms to create a level playing field for everybody? And so Google is an issue with, searches being suppressed and Gmail being suppressed for conservative fundraising. They're doing things like that. YouTube, obviously, we've got issues with Facebook and Instagram. So Twitter is just one. We still have, unfortunately, like a bunch of other big tech platforms out there. But what do you think needs to happen?
Well, I think for starters, we need to have Zuckerberg on Joe Rogan more, because every time he goes on Joe Rogan, we learn more and more about the internal communications between him and our federal agencies. I remember when he was drugged before, it was all three of them, Dorsey and the gentleman from Google and Zuckerberg were all dragged before Congress on October 28th. And Zuckerberg flat out said that it was customary for the federal government to do this, and they told us to be on the lookout of this massive dump of Russian disinformation. And my jaw dropped, because I'm like, there's my smoking gun. This is proof. I just needed to find the date, because if we knew exactly when the FBI warned Facebook and social media and Twitter and the lot, then I would know on my timeline. Does that coincide with me handing over the drive to Rudy's lawyer, or did that? And it turns out it did, because Miranda Devine found out that Rudy's email was being spied on by the FBI, and they knew exactly when that drive. They knew August 28th. I overnighted that drive to Rudy's lawyer, and then they ran off to a very complacent and willing social media. And I think that's the problem, is until these organizations either admit that they are private companies and they are not a bastion of free speech, and they're not these social meccas, and that's fine. If you want to hang out on Twitter and speak your mind in an environment that you are in like minds and hear what you want to hear, then great. And then I'll go to Truth, or we'll have these different platforms. That's fine as well, but don't advertise it as this bastion of freedom of speech when you're repressing and silencing people. So they need to own up to it. They need to be honest, because I don't think they're going to change. I think there's just too many people. I mean, we're getting the Band-Aid peeled off of Twitter, but not necessarily, and a little bit on Facebook. We're not seeing YouTube, which is Google. We're not seeing Google. We're not seeing where it is in other places. I want to know how many Jim Bakkers are at Facebook.
Yeah.
Or at Google. I want to know how many Jim Bakkers are at Apple making these hardware devices so that they can be easily located and tracked and whatnot. It begs the question, because, and then I think the easiest way to do it is just to figure out how many lawyers left the FBI and CIA and DIA in the past 15 years. And if they went to tech companies, I think you need to bring them in.
And Jim Hunter, or I'm sorry, Jim Bakker, he was I believe chief counsel at the FBI, and when he left the FBI, like a lot of these people, just between government and tech and entertainment industries, they just kind of move around from one to the other. He went to become general counsel at Twitter immediately after. And the big thing that came out in the Twitter files, just dovetailing on what John Paul just said, that was just, again, this is earth shattering. Okay, there's proof that the FBI knew where the laptop came from. They knew it was not Russian disinformation. And after they knew it, they went to, we know Twitter, and we have to assume Facebook, and said, hey, be on the lookout for something that's going to be Russian disinformation having to do with Hunter Biden. So they're the ones, this is the FBI, this is the Justice Department. I mean, this is tyranny. This is a rogue government. This is a big problem. They knowingly lied to the tech companies in order to push a narrative and bury a story. There's no getting around it. I mean, people need to be in jail. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, to put it bluntly. And the fact that the media, and which is just the propaganda wing of the Democrat Party, we've talked about that, but they haven't even been reporting on this, man. The Twitter files, they're not even touching it. It's worse than I thought it was. I thought a lot of it was incompetence, and it is for some people, but it's definitely on purpose. I mean, just reading it. But anyway,
it's about as close as you can get to state-sponsored media without actually being state-sponsored media.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
I gotta say, I'm not gonna get all like karma and kismet and all this, but I think that if we were to use karma as the driving force, oh, that looked like Jack Daniels for a second. I think that whatever happened, however Hunter Biden walked into your little shop there in Wilmington, I think that there is some like divine intervention, because your composure, your temperament with this whole situation, your thoughtfulness when things did start to get squirrely. I know that if I had my hands on it, if somebody came at me, I'm far more the type that would throw fists and talk later, and it would not work out well. So, kudos to you for handling it with the composure that you have. I'd like to, if I may ask, and this is maybe a little out of line, but how are you doing now versus when we talked to you last? Has your life gotten easier? I mean, obviously you're under the gun, but do you feel like you're more prepared to handle this throughout the road that's ahead of you?
Well, from my experience with Twitter, I definitely know how long our legal system can take. So I'm braced for impact for that. I think, like anything, when you do something over and over again, you hopefully learn from it and you get better at it. that goes with emotions, that goes with skill sets, that goes with anything. So I feel like I've matured in my confidence, and I've definitely learned a lot, especially when it comes to understanding psychological games and just how press will deal with me, or how people will deal with me, or how I have to deal with people. And there's a lot of tradecraft I've learned, if you will, that has helped me, and that will probably continue to help me in the fights to come. So I mean, it's I think I told my publisher the other day, because he reached out because he's concerned that, you know, they're going to come after me or whatever. And I told him, I was like, you know, I've had 2 years to plan for this.
Yeah.
You know, this is, I've been learning and paying attention, and I feel like I'm ready. And that's a confidence that I probably didn't have 8 months ago.
Yeah.
I have that now. Do I think somebody asked me if you know, do you think you'll win? And again, that this is not, when you come to terms with that fact that hopefully this is something that I'm not supposed to win, this is something I'm just supposed to live through, and they're supposed to lose. And now that I've kind of galvanized that, that bolsters my decisions and my pushes. You know, it's like the Washington Post ran that story on Saturday. It was talking about a meeting they had in September. But since the time they had that meeting, I sued Hunter Biden. So it's, you know, I filed my lawsuit October 16th against Hunter Biden, Adam Schiff, Politico, CNN, and the campaign to elect Joe Biden. So
Nice.
because I know that if I can keep them on the defensive, then they can't be on the offensive. They're not going to be a pain in my ass if I continue to be a pain in their ass. And so when you get when we knew that there was something that Morris was up to, and he released that mind map that says that the laptop came from Roger Stone and the Alba office, and that bizarre twisted thing, I guess that was, Hunter's going to eventually pay him for that. I don't know how you would bill that, but even though you see the insanity in that mind map, you still see somebody that's trying to create a narrative, trying to muddy the waters, just trying to do anything. And I can't allow that to happen. So we have to sue them. We have to be ahead of them in this fight, because they have more power, they have more money, they have the capability to cheat a hell of a lot better. I mean, I had beat Twitter at Section 230. We beat them. They put up that defense, and the judge was like, no, you were the author of this defamation. It's not somebody else's words. You decided this was hacked material, and we beat them. And then the second we told them that we were going to have Hunter Biden testify, because the best person to say that I'm not a hacker is the guy that hired me to do the job, they switched judges on me with an Obama appointed judge that threw the case out. So and then awarded Twitter the slap statute. So I'm financially destroyed. I didn't mind so much in retrospect, because I would never have written that book if it wasn't for getting my bum handed to me by Twitter. So that's why I'm never going to hassle Elon about Twitter. I'm not going to revisit, even though they lied to us and they lied to the American people about repressing the Hunter Biden story. I'm not going to stand in the way of whatever Elon's doing. I think my beef was with Twitter 1.0, and he's Twitter 2.0, and I'm not going to stand in his way. I figure he's got enough people hounding him for stuff right now.
Well, we'll bring it up to him when we have him on the podcast.
Well, tell him I said if he needs somebody to go to the moon or Mars, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
We got to make sure we pay our $8 to be verified, though.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Oh, I'm Scottish. I'm not paying for anything.
One thing, not a question, but just to clarify something that John Paul said, this other story that the Washington Post article got into, and this blew my mind because I didn't even know about it. And I know you did, John Paul, but I'd never read about this, that Hunter Biden's therapist or psychiatrist, somebody, was in possession of one of Hunter's laptops. Now this came out before.
Jesus, does he just hand them out like TikTok?
I know, that's
How
what
many
blew my
laptops does
mind.
this guy have?
That's what blew my mind. So anyway, he had left it with this guy.
Laptop.
He had left it with this guy, and this guy ended up turning it. Did he turn it into the FBI or something? Anyway,
The FBI raided him.
they raided him, took it, and
Raided
gave
him.
it back to Hunter's lawyer. And then they were trying to say what happened is that John Paul conspired and what was it, took that laptop and then tried to say that Hunter dropped it off so they could get around the hacking thing. I
Yeah,
don't know,
I
something
think
crazy like
it's
that.
Roger Stone took it from Dr. Alba.
Yeah,
So-
Dr. Alba was the
And
doctor.
Alba, and
Alblo.
gave it,
Alblo.
put a whole bunch of fake stuff on it, gave it to me, and with instructions to pass it off to the FBI as if it was real, and then eventually Rudy Giuliani or whatever. You know, I
It's
think,
crazy.
yeah, it's absolutely the first thing I did when I was going after Twitter was we went to have that signature authenticated, and we paid a lot of money to have a 30-year FBI veteran, one of the most recognized handwriting specialists in the field, dissect that. He gave us a 24-page document that gave us the psychological breakdown of the individual that during the time of signature.
Wow.
Which I said, can we get the cheaper version that doesn't have that? Apparently no.
Like, I just need to know who wrote it. I don't
Yeah.
need to know it.
I'm like, yeah, just say, can I get the percentage?
Yeah.
But it came back 99.8% or something incredibly high that it's irrefutable. There's no way it was Hunter. I remember the vehicle he showed up
Yeah, you said it was a truck
in front of
that
my
was-
shop.
Did you
There
not
were
have
so many-
cameras in your shop that would catch that on camera?
You know, I remember I got cameras in the shop. I think I got cameras in the summer of 2019 because I had a customer. I've never had a problem with theft. Mac people are generally incredibly honest, except for one guy. And they come, they don't steal or anything. I had a customer come in who accidentally grabbed another customer's hard drive. So now I lost a drive. The other customer didn't know. I freaked out. I viewed this is an excuse now to get a camera system so I can make sure, this never happens again. But I want to say that happened after Hunter was in, because I never had a problem at the shop. It was a pretty good shop.
And the three things that refuted the Ablo story was basically, one, there were things that were on the laptop that you had that weren't on his. So, riddle me that. The other thing is that Hunter's lawyer reached out to you asking if you still had Hunter's laptop, so which you were genius about getting in writing. I mean, that was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that
then
was a
one
stressful
thing
thing.
I was going to ask Brian about if he was here, but in the article they quote Brian is saying they're saying this quote, that is why neither he, meaning Hunter, nor his father have ever actually denied that it, meaning the laptop, is his. And I was curious, and I know that was the case. I guess it's still the case. So to date, today is December 13th, 2022. Hunter Biden has yet to deny that this laptop was his. Is that correct, as far as you know?
Well, I don't think they've admitted that it's his. They haven't denied it, but
Or admitted it, yeah.
the president Joe went on one of the debates and told the American people that this was all an operation from the Kremlin. It's all Russian. Hunter Biden had no problem going on NBC and telling the morning show that, I don't know, it could be stolen, it could be Russians, it could be hacked. He actually said stolen twice. He could have, at any point in this, he could have admitted, yeah, my lawyer actually called the tech guy and he said it was abandoned, and he could have been honest about it. His father could have been honest about it instead of lying to the American people. And this is why I'm suing them.
Yeah.
They could always
Fantastic.
just check the DNA if they wanted to.
Ew, gross.
Yeah, I was
We don't-
gonna
we
say,
don't-
like,
Sorry, but
We
don't
don't-
they have
they could, couldn't they?
There's
computer
a rule in
forensics
the
that-
industry.
Yes.
Hey, can I ask about,
I-
so talking about the laptops changing hands, one of for me, one of the pivotal moments in your book, American Injustice, was that point where your father took one of the laptops, I think, to the FBI in Albuquerque, was it?
Mhm.
And they basically refused to take it, and to me, when I was reading the book, I'm putting myself into your shoes, and it felt like a punch in the gut at that point, because you had to be thinking, okay, this isn't going to be as easy as you probably thought it was going to be. You thought, you could just hand it in and then boom, everybody would see the truth and recognize it and accept it, but that it didn't happen that way. And it's almost comical the way it, because to me, it's like if you went to the FBI with a bloody knife and said, look, I got this bloody knife. I think it was used in a crime. Can I give it to you? And they're like, no, just fill out this paperwork.
Oh, that looks like evidence.
Like they don't want, and your dad's like, I'll go out to the car and I get it. I can bring it right back in here. They're like, no, we don't want it. I'm like,
Sounds
it's
like
just
work.
crazy. I mean,
Sounds like work.
There was a real part about that, about like from your dad's perspective, that I found kind of interesting, in that I wanted for, don't quote me, I'm not quoting your book, but your dad was just like, I've been through a bunch of shit. If they come after me and want to take me out, that's one thing. But you're my son. I'm being a little liberal with how I read it, but it just reminded me of how I am with my kids, and like I would throw myself in front of a bus for them, and I just thought that was just incredibly noble of your father, and I can only imagine that you guys are incredibly close. But it was just an observation that I made from the book, is that that's a hell of a bond.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I fight so hard, is because I want to return this country to a state that my father can be proud of again. He went to the FBI for one purpose, and that was to make sure his son, that was 1,800 miles away, where he could do nothing about, had some level of protection, because he was sitting on a time bomb. And at the end of that FBI meeting, both my father and I knew that my situation was so much worse, because not only did the FBI have in possession now Hunter's paperwork that said that I was allowed to go onto these drives. If that paperwork ended up at the wrong hands, then the wrong people would know what I was doing, what I was trying to do, and who I am and where I was. So the circle of people the potential of danger got larger after that meeting, where that was the opposite of what my father was hoping would happen. He just wanted to get some security for his kids. So I'm hoping that I can get some justice and return some of that, some of his patriotism.
Yeah, he sounds like an amazing guy. I
Yeah.
hope I'm half the man that he is.
Oh. He's a good dad. I was a bit rotten little turd when I was young. So.
Aren't we all?
And he was always home. He was gone. He was TDY for 6 months, home for 2 weeks, gone for 6 months. So it's like he'd go off to fight a war, and mom would just be like, all right, we don't have to clean the house for like 5.5 months. So everybody can relax. And then 2 weeks before he gets home, it's like, all right.
Scrub everything.
Clean.
Yeah. So we got that system down pretty good. I mean, luckily it was like there was Panama, and then Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and then Bosnia, and then Kosovo, and so and then oh yeah, he spent a lot of time in combat, so which was good for my mom.
Here's
what?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What I think is really also very intriguing is the consistency with how we talked to you, which was before the book came out, right? Versus what I read in the book. Honestly, I mean, a lot of it, short of the nitty-gritty details, I knew the whole story. You didn't, I couldn't even imagine anything that wasn't consistent with what you told us on the show the last time we had you on. And I think that's gonna come through the test of time, that this guy has not changed his story. I personally feel like your road, again, I said it in the last show, but I think you're not even halfway through the desert. You could still, turn back now and get to water. Yeah, I think if you stay true, I personally, again, I worry for your safety, but there's part of me that says I'm not so worried for your safety, because you are out there, at least now. You can't just be a blip that just disappears. Now Now I know you like your Amstel, but as long as you don't drink 4,700 of those, I think they can't get you on that either.
There's
Yeah.
like
What I
no
mean?
alcohol in an Amstel. It's like 3%. It's beer
very
flavored
light.
Pellegrino.
Yeah.
It's a very good beer.
I like it.
How
So
did you
Sorry.
sorry, Mike, I was just going
Yeah.
on the topic of the book. How did you manage to write that book? I mean, do you have like a photographic memory? How did you go through the recollection process of, I can't remember what I did last week, and you were able to,
Podcast.
yeah, podcast. Yeah.
how did you do that? What was your process?
Well, I took a lot of notes. You know, I started taking notes when the laptop became my property, and I started doing a deep dive into it. I had 2 computers set up. I had a clone of the laptop that I worked on, that I looked at, and then I had another laptop that I did notes and Google searches, because I didn't want to have the computer with Hunter stuff on the internet, because it would phone home and I didn't want to get in trouble. So that during that deep dive, I took notes, which definitely helped in the Burisma grift part of the book. I kept emails. I kept every interaction I had with the FBI. I kept every email with my father. I
Wow.
kept
Mm.
everything.
Wow.
And everything's time and date stamped, every text message. So because I kept everything, because I'm a big nerd, and I guess maybe the overall takeaway is that back up your data and have redundancy, because having a backup has saved my bacon more than once.
Mhm.
Yeah, that whole delete my text messages after 30 days. Turn that off.
Screenshots, everything I could to time and date stamp. If I had a phone call, screenshot on my phone after that, time and date stamp, just so
Wow.
it's an image, so I can get to it.
Wow.
I took a lot of notes, and I even told the FBI agents 3 years ago, when they came to my shop, I said, don't worry,
Yes,
lads,
I
I'll leave your
remember.
names out of the book. And so there was a little, even though that was a joke, I guess part of me felt like, well, there might actually be a book in this if I live that long.
That was the moment when he turned around and threatened you.
Yeah. And out of respect, I did change that agent's name.
Yeah. So I've got just a question here, and I'm going to read this from what was this from? This is from an article yesterday. I think it was on Breitbart. This gets in. The article was about how it was on that Washington Post article, was reporting on that article, saying how the Hunter Biden team is looking to go on the offensive. One of the things they had in there, it says in 2018, Peter Schweizer published a book called Secret Empires. It was on the New York Times. It was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, and exposed how Hunter and Joe Biden flew to China aboard Air Force Two in 2013 before Hunter's firm inked a $1.5 billion deal with a subsidiary of the Chinese government's Bank of China, less than 2 weeks after the trip. Schweitzer's work also uncovered the Biden family's other vast and lucrative foreign deals and cronyism. Again, it was revealed that Joe Biden was intimately involved in Hunter's businesses, appearing to even have a 10% stake in the company formed with officials at the highest levels of the Chinese Communist Party. So this is, again, Schweitzer wrote this book in 2018. I remember generally hearing a little bit about it, but really not really. But it made me think, were you aware of any of these Hunter, Joe Biden corruption stories that were swirling around before entering the stage on this story yourself?
No, I think it was probably around June of 2019 when I started actually noticing Burisma and Hunter Biden in the news. Up before that, I really didn't know anything about Hunter. I never cared. I knew that Joe had some kids. I knew more about Joe and the only thing I really knew about Joe was his wife used to do the Biden breast cancer initiative at this hair salon, Shea Nicole, where I had some friends that worked. So I would go there to get my head shaved for $50, and that would help breast cancer, because why not? So, that was like the only real care level I had when it came to the Biden family. You hear rumors, but in my industry, we don't like to succumb to rumors or speculation, because, well, facts get the computers fixed, not speculation. So it wasn't really, I'd say, because I remember I started getting nervous because I was already nervous after Joe Biden announced his candidacy. So at the end of April, I started getting nervous because I just figured there'd be a clean fixer-upper or whatever. So it was really, I think, maybe a month or two after that I started to notice Burisma in the news. I think there was news about Giuliani was investigating Burisma and the Biden's involvement during that summer, and that was on Fox or that was on Newsmax or something like that. So I think it was that's when I started to pay attention and realize that, oh wow, I've seen stuff like that, and then it went downhill from there.
I think it's been, maybe you would admit, it's been one of the side effects of your efforts to investigate the laptop, that you've probably learned more about Ukraine than you ever thought that you would. And you talk in your story, you call it the Ukraine grift, and it's a really complex scenario that probably a lot of Americans can't even wrap their heads around. What is your take on the Ukraine grift? What do you think happened there?
Well, I think that just like now, the world is pouring, back in 2014, was pouring billions of dollars into Ukraine. And the country is one of the most corrupt countries. It was corrupt under Soviet rule, and it was corrupt for the 30 years after. So I think that just our previous administration, or the Obama administration, saw an opportunity to poke the bear with a stick with the Ukraine, and then that spurs defense contracts, I'm sure, and because we can send material and weapons over there. And I from the email, the first email that I read when Hunter goes to Devon is like, this is it almost looked like the Burisma grift. They're hatching this idea. They're like, we need to get Joe over there to parade around. We don't know, we can't be responsible for how much excitement he brings, but we're going to have to present it as it's value added. So that's just, our example. So they paraded Joe around the Ukraine in front of these oligarchs to get them on this board of directors and get these $2.5 million contract, which would again give them $40,000 a month to sit on this board. And the day that after Hunter gets on the board, Vadim, the number 2 guy at Burisma, says, hey, here's the deal. They're pressuring us to get all this money. Do what you can to put pressure on our government to send a signal. And if that's not a blatant pay for play, I don't know what is. And it went back and forth. And I think Congress won't have a difficult time. Just go into the State Department, because a lot of these things, visas were being issued and systems were being, Nikolai was banned from entering the US, and then Hunter made a phone call, and then that reversed. So it's kind of, there's a lot of paper trails, I'm sure, at the State Department that could clear up a lot of these things. And then follow the money. Eric Schwerin was the money man, and he was handling Joe's finances. He was in the middle of it. That was one of the first things I saw, was a statement. He was like, obviously, Hunter, you can't live off of $550,000 a year. So we're going to borrow money from this shell company that you created. We're going to call this phantom income. And it was $2.5 million. We're not going to count that on our 2014 taxes. And I'm like, holy cow, that's not a little, the IRS hit me up for $57 from 2016. Yeah. So it's, this is a little bit more than that.
How much, I just thought of this, based on what you've seen, and the size of the laptop from just a data standpoint, I'm just curious, what percentage of the information on that laptop has entered the public domain already, would you say, I guess?
That's a tricky question. So, there's been an individual, Marco Polo, has published, I believe, something like 128,000 emails. I think there's a lot of the laptop that's been out. Pretty much all of the really important stuff is out.
Okay.
Or has been discussed or has been talked about. I know Yakov Applebaum, who's been instrumental in making sure that the criminality was found, identified, tagged, and then also a record sent to the FBI. of that criminality, so that we had that in our existence moving forward in my legal team, so that, you know, the FBI couldn't get back to us. We made every effort to present this material, and there was identifiable criminality. And then he's published all that on his blog. So it's kind of like the stuff's out there. There's a couple things, like somebody squeezed something out of me the other day that I've been kind of holding on to. But you know, it's like, besides that, it's out there now. It's time to act on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if there's any exclusive things that you'd like to reveal, there's no better place than the Friends of Zeus podcast.
It's never been my responsibility to share the contents of the laptop with anybody other than authorities and people of authority in Congress.
Good answer.
Yeah.
That's all. Well,
the word I had to learn is misprison. That's where you can get in
Misprison.
trouble if you don't report this criminality. So that's
Gotcha.
words I have to use a lot.
Well, here, and you may not be able to answer this, I don't know, but speaking of Congress, have you or Brian been contacted by any sitting members of Congress about testifying or anything? Because I know that they're looking, you know, to have hearings as soon as they can figure out who their speaker is.
Well, there's two groups. There's Jim Jordan's group, which is going after the FBI and their involvement, in colluding with mainstream media and social media. And then there's Comer's group, which is going after the actual criminality and the Joe Biden link to the criminality, and the pay for play and whatnot. I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you can say.
I am very happy that the individuals that I have been working with for the past 4 or 5 months, through Brian or directly, all got reelected, and they all seem incredibly sincere about seeing this thing through. So I'm very excited about that. I have made myself available in whatever capacity. If they need the copy of the signature report for Hunter Biden's signature, because right now I see the opposition. There's only one thing they can do. They can't make the laptop go away. They can't say it's fake. You know, the CBS has authenticated the copy that my lawyer gave them like a couple of weeks ago. So they can't put that genie back in the lamp. What they can do is they can challenge the chain of custody, which is the mind map thing, and they can, which ultimately comes back to, they can make it look like it was all a Republican attack that started in 2018 when Hunter left it at Alba's house. So that's it. And if we can give Congress the tools to make sure that timeline will never be decided as fact, then I'm all about it. So giving them all my communications with the FBI, everything. I mean, I pretty much told them, go buy the book. It's really there. It's the cliff notes to the whole thing. It's chronological order. There's nothing they can color, but it's okay. They can read that, and then because I was a little concerned a couple weeks ago because Comer came out and he was like, "Oh, the FBI didn't know that there were copies, and there's actually 3 laptops." And and I'm like, no. We cannot give them any opportunity to find room for their narrative to spread or to grow at all. And it has to be consistent. We have to kind of do what you see on all the mainstream Sunday morning shows, where everybody's regurgitating the same words, the same lines, looking at the same data, and they're all marching in the same beat. The opposition's incredibly good at that, and we need to be as well.
And I think that's like earlier when I was asking about, like, there's new people all the time learning about this story. That's got to be crazy for you. Like, they're contacting you, and your point's well taken. And it's like, if people are familiar with like political campaigns, okay? I mean, if you've ever gone to see a politician speak in different venues, it's like if you go to see a band and they play like 3 nights in your town, you see them all 3 nights and they play the exact same set list or whatever. But politicians will make the same stump speech, the same point again and again and again. And for them personally, it's got to be infuriating, because they're saying that, just like with John Paul, I'm sure he feels this. Like, he probably gets asked every question we ask him, he's probably been asked it like 700 times. And you just have to have some discipline to like keep the story, going.
Well, it's
Yeah.
easy. It's the same story I told the
It's the same
FBI
story.
like 3.5 years ago. It's
And
the
it-
same story that, it's nothing's changed because it's the truth, and there's a reason why it's been consistent because I lived it.
And it's genius having the book too, John Paul, because now, and not just genius, it's got to be nice because, like you said, you can just refer people, say, "Hey, man, look, just read the book," and then if you have any questions, I'll be happy to talk to you. But because you really lay it out, and it's really easy to follow, like kind of, and get the points of like what happened.
Yeah,
Well,
there
thank you.
really is. Did you know? If you had a ghostwriter, I don't want to.
No, I wrote that. I wrote that in 5 weeks.
Well,
Jeez.
then,
Nice.
spot on, man. You should write
Well-
something else. Because it was really well organized. It
Thanks.
flowed like I don't even have the words for it, but the flow of it, and I read a lot, was just perfect. I was riveted from the beginning to the end.
Well,
Now there
thanks.
is, a bias, but still.
Well, they gave me an editor, and basically I hadn't written this much since high school. So, and I don't even think I wrote that much in high school combined. So this is very new to me, and I did not know how to type conversation. So it was always like, then I said,
Comma.
quotes, and then I said, and then my father said, and it was like, apparently that you can get away with just kind of just spacing and carriage returns. So I learned a lot about the technique. The second book is going to be a lot smoother, and I probably won't, because they gave me an editor, but the editor even came back and said I didn't really need I just needed to fix the technical things, like too many commas. Tell you,
Oh, I like commas.
my mother found more spelling mistakes. She actually went to school, and I'm thinking the editors missed some of these things. And I'm
Wow.
like, I hope they didn't pay that person a lot of money, but oh well. But it was definitely a learning curve. The second book's about halfway done. I'm just hoping that I'm kind of putting it off because I want this book to have a happy ending. And I haven't decided if that's going to be like a high five with my lawyer in the courtroom, kind of like,
Yeah.
like an Aaron Brockovich meets, I don't know, Sense of a Woman. Or if it's me in a kilt testifying before Congress, giving Adam Schiff the finger.
There you go. Put that on
So-
the cover.
I want to end the book that way, but I don't know yet. So I'm kind of apprehensive. I don't want to get too excited. I got excited with Twitter when I was suing Twitter, because again, you get these little victories, and then I, like as you said earlier, the roller coaster hits, and then you go from like this, wow, I'm on Zillow house shopping, to I need to go back to the place in the country that hates me the most, or I'll lose my home. So
Yeah.
it's I've learned to kind of quell my, again, if this is something that I just lived through, I call that a win. If they
Mhm.
lose, I call that a victory.
I'm wondering, and I'm sorry, and then I know it's Tom's
Yeah.
turn. I keep stepping in, but just
Sorry.
out of curiosity, and I can't think of any names off the top of my head, but I will in a few minutes, I'm sure. Has anyone else, has anyone contacted you that's been in not the same situation, because your situation's pretty unique, but in this
It's
sort of
very
like
unique.
public eye, kind of like you're in the, rock in a hard place, whatever. Has any other people gotten in touch with you to give you advice on how to deal with this? Like they've been through it? No?
No. Yeah, well, yes, actually, Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson is the former CIA guy that worked with my dad at the CIA, and
Mhm.
kind of he's the guy in the book that kind of reaches out to my family and basically takes us under his wing, gets us on signal, kind of gives us intel on what's happening. He I believe in 2016 he had something not similar, but the repercussions were very similar. He uncovered a plot where the British intelligence was spying on half of the Clinton campaign, and he wrote an article about that, and then he got death threats, and he started getting banned on this, and people started coming after him. So he told me he has some experience in this and what to do and how they'll come at you, and the tools that they'll use to come at you. So
That's good.
that, and I have been incredibly grateful for Larry and his tech guy Yakov for the assistance that they provided myself and my family during all of this. And he checks up on me monthly. So it's
Yeah.
or whenever things get hairy, he checks up on me. So
That's great,
yeah.
because I mean, he definitely, it seems like in the future you would be a good person if someone finds themselves in a similar or in some kind of situation like this. It would, I'd be like, man, I got to call this John Paul guy and get his advice or whatever, because it just seems from an outside perspective, it just seems like, and Zeus touched on this earlier, that you've navigated this fairly well. Like, I don't know that, I don't think most people would have been as deft as you have been in doing this. So I've kind of suspected that you've gotten some advice, because it's very complex. It's hard. You got to really check your emotions, and it's got to be tough, man. It's got to be tough.
Well, it hasn't, once you get over the fear part,
Mm-hmm.
and once I was like, okay, this is bigger than me. This is now, this is an opportunity that I have, that has dropped in my lap, that I can try to hold these people accountable when nobody else in this country can, maybe at this level or at this juncture, or maybe ripping, by me going to the FBI knowing they were bad, and ripped the Band-Aid off. So now we see the FBI and it's politicalization, it's weaponization. We can deal with that. We can get that uncovered. I know the left has wanted to consistently make an example out of me, to punish me financially, to make, basically don't blow a whistle. This will be what happens to you if you blow a whistle. If I survive this and everything, and I come out, and again, I don't want to get my hopes up on top. If I just survive this, then maybe, but show the support that I've received, and that you can make it through this, that doing the right thing has consequences. But if you stick to your guns and you have your integrity, like those poor kids that had the Ashley Biden diary, I mean, aren't they doing like 20 years now? Because
Yeah.
they tried to sell it. They tried to profit it off of it.
Yep.
If sure, it crossed my mind, like, oh, I could probably unload this for a couple $100,000 at the whatever, but that would be incredibly the wrong thing to do, and I'd probably get in trouble for it, and it's not going to help this country, and it's not going to solve my problem or the country's problem by me being selfish and doing the wrong thing when I was presented with an opportunity to do the right thing. And if I can lead by an example, if I can show the next whistleblower, like I said, that it's okay to blow the whistle, then maybe more people will be held accountable, and maybe more will discover more ways that we have been lied to for so long when it comes to our mainstream media and our government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's,
two
Sorry.
words that you mentioned that scream out in this book, and your character, from what little time we've spent with you, are integrity and accountability. And there's not a lot of either they're going on right now in the world. And I'll speak on both sides, both sides of the political parties. There's just, it's all a lot of screaming voices and not a lot of action. It's let's see how much noise we can make, and no real results. And that was something I wanted to ask you about. Did you ever get the bottle of scotch?
No, I haven't got the bottle of scotch yet. And
Okay.
I figure until maybe a different administration, I'm pretty sure if I accepted a bottle of scotch from Rudy, I'd be thrown in prison for campaign violation or something.
Or
So,
something.
it's
That
not
better be
worth
a
it. Plus, I heard
bottle of scotch.
yeah. Plus, I heard he drinks Macallan, like it's a 21-year Macallan. So it's like I could go to the store and get that if I really wanted to. So
And it's about $140, but still, it's
Yeah.
achievable.
You can get it.
yeah,
Hey,
it's,
John Paul, so in your book, American Injustice,
yeah.
get your copy now. You talked about at one point your friends, or people that you thought were your friends, they were posting a lot of negative comments online. When this first started to erupt, but have any of them changed their tune at this point? Has anybody come back and said, you know what, after I found out this or found out that? I mean, have any of them kind of
Yeah.
changed?
And I'm not expecting an apology. I have bumped into some people and, hey, how you doing? So at least they care enough to ask, as opposed to venting. A lot of them probably don't know that I know what they said about me, because I kind of got this from other people. So it's kind of interesting because they're nice to me now, but I'm pretty sure when I'm not in the room. And there's some people that there's nothing will ever change their minds. They're so even with the Elon stuff coming out, where I have a friend, mutual friend, and he's just kind of like, don't you get it now? Can't you see? And they just don't want to see.
Wow.
And I get it.
That's
Nobody
awesome.
wants to be told that you were lied to by the people you trust. Nobody wants to admit that they made a bad decision or they chose poorly. Nobody likes to be wrong, and I get it. And I'm not asking for apology. I just ask people to, if you want to challenge the truth without even trying to learn it, then just leave me alone. If you want to have a conversation, if you want to learn about it, I'll share. I wrote a book, for crying out loud. I am totally willing to have this conversation, and I'm not a political person. I hope that came across in the book as well. And because again, I wrote the book for the half the country that didn't believe me or was lied to or told that I was a stooge of Putin,
So I'm going to argue that you are political, but that it's an inherent skill, much like your father with how he handled things. I think some of us just have those certain underlying skills, and until they're expressed, you don't realize that you have them. But I would say that you were incredibly politically minded. You definitely have your standards that you live by. But no, I would absolutely argue that you are very political, but you don't act out upon it. If that
You mean like
makes sense.
aware, like politically aware,
Yeah,
or
very
like
politically aware. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, I am now.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding.
Trial by fire, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
John
Well-
Paul, would you say that writing this book was just personally, was it therapeutic for you, just getting it out and just like dump like word vomit onto like, okay, this is the story. I don't have to hold on to it anymore. It's there. And it was, you said you mentioned the emotional roller coaster that you went through, and like the courage finding and the fear, and having to deal with all those feelings. And I mean, I know for a lot of people, just writing it down or getting it out or telling their story is just therapeutic for them just by doing that. Do you think, was that the same way for you in writing this book?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was. I mean, I wrote that thing until I couldn't see. My eyes were so tired, I just couldn't see. And then I'd just lay down and then I'd wake up and then
Much
start
more.
writing. If I could see again, I could write.
Mhm.
And it felt so good to
Yeah.
feel like because I made YouTube videos back in 2020 defending my actions, and then they were shadow banned. So it's like I'm all excited that I'm
Wow.
going to get to be able to tell my story and get the truth out. And then that was followed up by 5 months of getting completely rejected and ignored by every publisher that I reached out to, because either they thought I was a Russian agent or they were afraid their Twitter account would be canceled. So
Yeah.
I didn't get any feedback and response. So I was all excited. I knocked this, but it was 100 when I finished it, because there's a little bit more in the part and then the copy that got printed, because they did trim out some things because I babble too much, I guess. But the going from wow, I put a 66,000 words down on paper in 5 weeks to I could have taken a lot longer. I could have paced myself because this book is never going to get published. And I didn't think I would ever have this book published until February, when I was able finally to make contact with Miranda Devine, and she helped me out. So
How is it, may I ask, how is it sold, your book? How's it done?
I don't know. I'm so shy. I'm afraid to ask my publisher because I don't even know when I get paid.
Yeah.
I don't even know how any of it works, to be honest.
John Paul's the guy that goes to the job interview and doesn't ask him what his salary is going to be. Just like, okay, I'll come out.
But that wasn't your main motivation. I mean,
No,
I'm
my
sure it was part
motivation
of
was
it,
to
but
get this truth out. That was it. And I tried to explain it to the publisher. I'm like, I will go and I will do whatever you need me to do to sell and promote this book. But I have to do these other things while I'm doing it. I have to mention the lawsuit so that I can put pressure on those that need to be held accountable. I need to mention the America Project. I have all these things that are part of this whole effort.
Yeah.
and trying to get the publisher to understand that it's not just about the book. And they're like, well, don't you want to be a famous author? And I'm like, no. I'm a one
No, I
trick
just
pony.
want to get the
Maybe
story.
a two-trick pony, but I don't.
Well,
So I think
Do
they
you-
have a riot with that, because I guess I'm not your typical author. I could care less about. I'd look at the 5-star and the 4-star. I think I'm at a
Mhm.
4.7 stars, because
Oh,
that's all
okay.
I know as far as metrics is.
I gave you a
Stars.
star. I gave you
Eh.
4 stars.
Sweet.
Did you get to pick the cover out?
Oh, the cover.
yeah,
So,
you're on the cover. That's you, isn't it?
well, I did a cover.
In the
I
shadow?
drew the cover because I love creative arts and Photoshop and all that stuff. So I did a cover and I loved it. And then I gave it to them and they're like, no, we can't have we can't have this.
Here's
And
it
then they
going.
came back and they're
Shut
like,
down.
they showed me this cover and I was like, look, I am not going to hold up any aspect, because back then I wanted to get this book in
Out.
people's hands before the midterms. So in my mind, any back and forth, any creative stuff, or me being a whiny artist is not going to cut it. So I was just like, that's not a hat that I would wear.
Well, maybe the
So
second version.
that
will
was
have
like the
cover
only,
you want.
well, yeah. Oh, I get it. Some poor art department kid's got a job and he needs to do a salary. So there's like a million people that make a book for some reason. I don't know. I don't get it. I still don't understand it, but
I'll tell you this though, you've nailed like 5 subjects on my bucket list. One is I'd love to write a book, so you're crushing it there. Like, did you ever think as a teenager that you would be saying my legal team or the book that I wrote or
Yeah,
so
that's-
many things? You got like your bucket list got thrust upon you in like the last 2 years.
yeah, well, I wouldn't say a bucket list. I do joke around. I say the 3 things I never would have ever imagined that I would have needed in my life, or would have a publisher, a lawyer, and a gun.
Mhm.
And those are true statements 3.5 years ago. And I have all 3 now, and I had no idea that I would ever.
Yeah,
You
you
asked
need
me
that.
the 4 years ago me, I'd be like, ew, guns, ew, or lawyer, why? I would never do anything wrong.
You got like 3 of those laying
A
around.
publisher, I don't like writing invoices. The most I want to sign my name, that's the book signing is just kills me, because it's like the only people who have ever wanted me to sign anything in my life has been people that I usually got food from or a drink. Right.
Yeah,
I
your
owe
credit
them
card
money.
receipt.
Yeah, I need to prove who I am. Yeah, that's it. So it's like,
Just
can I
get
get your
stamped.
autograph? I'm like, why? Why? It's not that.
I gotta ask, on a little lighter fare, have you got any groupies?
No, I'm so afraid of being Me Too'd, or
Yeah.
it's kind of, I keep to myself. I have, especially knowing that Kevin Morris has had operatives poking around Northern Delaware now for a couple months. I keep very to myself, and I don't present myself as a visible target.
Good for you.
I think
Yeah,
that's
just-
smart. Yeah.
Just
Again,
gotta,
your composure and your integrity is quite astounding. I mean, I
Yes.
like to think I'm a big tough guy. I would have crumbled under 10% of the stress that you have to have been under. Just changing the way you walk from one place to another would be enough to have me be a basket case. So never sell yourself short. I don't think you are, but certainly don't ever consider selling yourself short. You're doing a bang up job with what was forced upon you.
still alive.
What was the one moment when you're like, I just a second ago was a normal person, and now I have something that this is going to change my life forever. Like, what was the moment you realized that?
Oh, I think when I checked my voicemail at the shop at something like 6:45 in the morning, and somebody was just telling me to, go kill myself, and
Mm.
yeah,
Mm.
that was just like, oh, it's out. I'm out.
Wow.
This is people know who I am. I mean, I had fought tooth and nail to have my identity a secret for like that year and a quarter or whatever, however long it was.
Mhm.
And I just really desperately thought I could keep my business, keep my place in the community, keep my house, keep everything, and keep my life, my happy little introvert. Oh, you got a cat.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
annoying.
He has
I-
cats.
I have
We read
cats.
about them.
Yeah. So it's kind of, yeah, when I got that first voicemail, and then it was like while I was listening to it, it was like new message, new message, new message, new message. I think I was just like, well, this is just never going to be the same.
Well, my life just changed. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, I am I speaking for myself again, just I don't have the composure that you've managed. I would be like, all right, you want some of this? Come on. That's just how I am. And it's not conducive with staying alive in a situation like yours.
Yeah, but you might see him coming. I won't see him coming. That's the scary part. I had to go to Colorado. That way they can't find me, and then I don't have to worry about seeing them coming.
Colorado.
Yeah. Well, Colorado.
So if there was a movie made like Zeus is saying, who would you want to play you?
Oh my
Ed
goodness.
Harris all day long.
Oh yeah, that
I'm
would
not
be a
that
good
old.
one.
Ed Harris is old.
Oh, well, they could de-age him maybe.
Okay, Zeus
yeah.
Allen, first acting job.
Yeah,
Well,
Zeus.
hold on. There's only so many albinos in Hollywood, or actors that look like albinos.
Yeah.
And Busey,
Your winner?
Busey's too old and too crazy
Mhm.
looking. So I hate to say it. The only one that pops up, and I don't know if they'll get him to shave his head, Anthony Rapp.
I'm not familiar with him. What was he in? Or what?
Oh
gonna
gosh.
look him
Anybody watch the Star Trek Discovery?
I have
No,
not.
no nerds on. No.
I mean,
No,
I've seen. So
you're
I love
very
Star
good.
Trek, but I
Oh.
haven't seen that. Anthony Rapp, is it R-A-P?
Yeah.
Or
He might have a little bit of history with Kevin Spacey. We don't
Two-piece.
get into that, but he
Oh,
I-
okay, I recognize
The
him.
kid that Kevin Spacey, the young actor. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
he's
Caesar.
I
he
know.
everybody thinks he's an albino, but he's not. He's one of those Hollywood actors.
Yeah, ginger.
He's-
He's a redhead.
He's 51, so we
Really?
should
He's
invite
old.
him on the show.
I thought he was young. I thought he was old.
Listen,
Hey,
listen.
wait, we're all
John Paul, we're not
51.
going to support your ageism.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, he was in Dazed and Confused and School
Yeah.
Ties.
Yeah, I know who he's talking about now. He
That's
was
pretty
Kevin
cool.
Spacey's like first victim. He was like 14 when or alleged victim.
Well, we can play if that happens. We're available to play ourselves on as podcast people on the movie. Just letting you know if it gets to that.
You know what? This is into the category of like irresponsibly going Zillow shopping when I was suing.
Right.
Troy,
I go Zillow shopping like every day.
to think this to think this far ahead, or to
I
think
know.
optimistic thoughts that, again, this is something I want to scale it back. I want to set it like, just like when I had customers, I always prided myself on setting appropriate expectations, because then the customer can't be upset. And then if you try harder, you might under promise, over deliver, and they really like that. So, and sometimes you get cookies from the old ladies and it's nice. Same thing. It's like, I gotta.
Yep.
No, I mean, knowing Hollywood, it's more likely that they would put out a movie, with you, like somebody like Vincent Price playing you, just turning you into a complete villain.
Yeah.
Well, I'm afraid if they do something, they'll ruin it. They'll make me like be
Oh, they would.
some
though, honestly,
right wing nut job, or
I'm sorry. Your story is so straightforward and bare bones. I honestly think that if it were put to a script, there's not going to be a lot of artistic license thrown out of it, outside of them maybe casting Matt Damon as you. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't like Matt
I
Damon.
think that your story
Yeah.
is very clear. There's not you did a really good job of delivering it as just the facts. This is how it was. There's not even, I don't even, like, in listening to it, there wasn't like room for hearsay or anything like that. It was all based on what you had evidence of and then your experiences, which nobody can argue. That's where the artistic license would come in. But no, I think there's a hell of a script there. It's
Have y'all
great.
ever seen Me, Myself, and Irene?
Oh yeah.
Okay, the guy that plays Whitey.
Oh,
I don't remember his
Hold on,
face.
time out,
Demo.
time out. I do not like the direction this conversation is taking. There's just
I'm
way
just
too
saying,
much,
he's
way
albino.
too much optimism. You ever hear a jinx? You're gonna jinx
I
this.
know. Okay, let's not jinx it. Well, that's what we do here on Friends of Zeus podcast.
no,
Yeah,
We
we
jinx
ruin
stuff.
everything here in the
We
Friends of
walk
Zeus
under
podcast.
ladders. We break mirrors. We do all kinds of crazy stuff. But I think we're getting a little long. Do you have any other questions, Tom or Desiree or Zeus?
No, I mean, I just wanted to say, I mean, you talk in your book about your family and the family's history of military service. And I know how disappointed you were that you weren't able to follow in those footsteps. And you made that clear. I think maybe this is your calling.
Yeah.
This is your service that
Great
you're
point.
providing.
The hill you're on top
It's
of.
a sacrifice that you're making for all of us.
That's a great point.
You know,
Tom.
I never thought of it that way. If anything, I've always thought that it was like I can't complain because I have family members that wrote a check up to that could include their life in the defense of this country. Like this was something that I didn't volunteer for. So therefore I can't really complain about it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? It's
Yeah.
like,
No, dude,
I just,
you were drafted into.
you know, I was drafted in and I have to continue to fight because so many of my family members and like when I go to film these veterans every year, that's I call it my vacation because I get to hang out with my heroes and listen to their war stories and have some beers and record their stories and preserve their history. And that makes me feel like this is what I'm doing instead of serving because I've chosen to do this. I've chosen to archive their stories. I've chosen to go to their reunions. This has all been a decision that I made. And even though the danger level as opposed to climbing an airplane to go to war is non-existent comparing to going to film these guys, I still feel like it's a choice that I made. It's the least I can do to honor them and honor my family's legacy.
I think that your humility is unparalleled, man. You're again, these guys know me. You only know me from one time before, but I am a barrel through things kind of guy, and I cannot even fathom how you have handled this with the grace and poise that you have.
Yeah, I'm still like
And so like
And still,
and single malts.
yeah, I'm a vodka guy, but again, and I know I've been being very complimentary during this episode, but it comes from a very real place. I tend to, once you know that I really like you, I'll start picking on you, but we'll give it a couple more episodes with you on before I do that. But I really admire what you've been able to do. I hope for you that at some point you can draw back the curtain a little bit, not worry about the Me Too garbage, and find somebody that you can sit back in an armchair, watch some TV, and just talk about events of the day without the shadow of dark government conspiracy behind it. I really truly pray for you for that. But you know, that's me.
I appreciate
awesome.
that. I'm hoping that I can tap out soon. I can get to a point where I feel like I've done enough and I've done all that I could, and then that's it. I'm done. I've left this in the hands of, and I'm hoping that it'll be around January 3rd because Congress will be take over, and if they need me to do anything, great. I'm giving them everything now. So hopefully I won't have to deal with it later, and then we can start a new year and I can start rebuilding my life.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning of the podcast, John Paul, you said you didn't know if, what winning would look like, or, what winning, I would say in some way, I think you've already won in a lot of ways, because look, the story's out there. You've opened a lot of people's eyes, and there's people, I mean, not just us, but there's other people that are with you, right? And have been on this fight even before we knew you, and so I think you kind of have, you've kind of, like I said, I think you've done a big service. I can't imagine if this situation didn't happen. It just pains me to think where we would where we would be. Like, because this
I
has
have no
opened
idea.
so many doors.
Well,
I'm
and
just saying, for
again,
it has taught
imagine
us so
if
many
this
things.
laptop was laid at your heels, Mike, or yours, Tom, or yours, Desiree, or me.
I'd be like, oh, broke laptop, trash.
Well, no, knowing what's on it, the same situation, but I think I probably would handle things quite differently.
I may have the Lamborghini from selling it to somebody. I have to admit, I may have. No, I wouldn't have
Perhaps.
sold it. I wouldn't have sold it. But
I probably would have just taken it to the smash room, not
But-
knowing like really what's on it. Just
but you
smash it
just
up.
don't. You don't know until something happens to you, right? I mean, I guess you always hear people say that they're put into these,
Yeah, everybody
more
would run
emergency
into this-
situations. Like
Everybody
people-
would run into the burning building until they're standing in front of a burning building.
That's what I'm saying. You just
They're
don't know how you.
It's a little hot.
You don't know how you're going to deal with it.
Looks real
Well,
Bernie.
Well, we have been on, and you've been very gracious with your time, John Paul. And
You guys are great.
I can't wait to have you on. We'll wait. It'll be sometime
the
in
next book comes out.
next book or next summer or
Alright.
something.
I
If
better
they're
get
done,
cracking. I
I'd
gotta
love
finish.
for us to talk to you right before the next election, like, as things heat up.
Well, we'll check in. Yeah, and we'll get Brian on too. Maybe we'll have Brian on sometime just to, whatever. And we still like to have you on for some silly episode, like what's your favorite music and stuff like that. But we'll see. You're pretty busy. But
Well, and hopefully not too much longer.
Gotcha. Well, Desiree, do you want to say Jack's part here?
I forgot what it was. Oh,
Well, guys, I think we've been on.
all right, boys. I think we've been on long enough. It's time to wrap it up.
All right. Well, take care, everybody out in podcast land. Till we
Thank
see
you,
you
guys.
again. Take care. Peace out.